Hey everyone, welcome to the 13th episode of Anoni. I'm your host Kazuki, and with me is my co-host Ai. Today, hello. Today we have decided to talk about world building in D&D
I'm not
specifically.
sure. It could be a book. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't
well,
know.
okay, well, that works. Today, as usual, we are just winging it for this subject matter. So, world building. When you hear that term, what comes to mind?
Lore. Basically, the background of a story or a flavor to a story, perhaps, or something that makes a story richer, or something like that.
When you speak about lore, what elements are usually what's the basic elements that you would consider
Lore.
having
Probably a yeah.
right lore? Yeah.
Probably a background, history, characteristics, yeah,
Settings.
something like that, yeah.
Yeah. So I think about it as like the general setting, maybe time period, fictional, non-fictional, or a mix. Culture,
Okay.
races, maybe languages, religion, politics. I think there's a lot that goes into lore.
Well, lore
So,
is a very broad topic. It's a
broad
river
term, yeah.
term as it is, so yeah.
So, when you build worlds, do you start small or do you start with from like a whole world and moving into like continents and then territories, or do you start just there's a vague world out there and you start in this tiny little village or something? What do you prefer
Usually
when
prefer
you build
starting with a
worlds?
village, but because I like to plan ahead. So if I know that will be like um a huge setting, I at least start with a region or a continent. Depends on how how large do I want the scale to be.
Have you created one, and how expansive is
Uh,
it?
I created a
What's in it?
continent. So I created a content before for a previous supposed to be a campaign for the D&D campaign, and then yeah, it has different kingdoms, it has different biomes, it has different like products, um, trade routes, different for each town depending on the region, they produce like different crops, they produce like um different kinds of mentality, culture, or like what else? For example, in the same one kingdom, despite being just one kingdom, depending on the region, they might have a different culture, or they might have a different like guards or philosophy in fighting, things like that.
And do you like how do you manage all those different things? Do you put them somewhere, write them down, or have a
I write it
divider, or
down
what do
first,
you do?
and then I check check the world. If this makes sense, I will add it. But if not, probably just put it back onto as a note, and then probably check once again if that will work somewhere else. Probably not on the region that I'm currently working, or probably on a different world, something like that.
Do you use like apps for world building?
Um, no.
Isn't
Usually just check like cartography maps or well, I use references like how should a map work, or how should a landmass um change, or
Oh,
yeah.
that's interesting.
because depending on the landmass, depending on the altitude of the landmass, uh,
Mm-hmm.
crops and biomes should, or like, yeah, flora and fauna would be
Should
different. Yeah,
match. Yeah. 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 That's a pretty good thing to note. And that kind of helps limit
it
resources
does.
as
Yeah,
well and kind of provides variety to the different territories. Okay. I think there's an app I forgot. I haven't really used it. It's called Anvil
yeah.
or something.
I'm more like
Yeah.
into free apps. I can't afford them well.
I don't know if I actually
Is this
subscribed or paid
this is
for it. I think
World
I just
Anvil,
checked it
right?
out.
Yeah, World Anvil. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, World Anvil, I think. Yeah. Should check that out. But for maps, do you use existing and restructure it, or do you like create it from scratch?
For the first one that I built, I reference a map that is like completely working. Like it's still a
Mhm.
fantasy continent, but I repurpose it.
I think that would be like the easier route, just to find an established map and
Yes,
maybe look at
yeah,
what's
but
there.
because at some part I did change something like the routes of the river, so those like the villages around the river, it also changes. So from the original source, there are gonna be like changes from that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. I think it would be if you're a first time world builder, I think the one of the better options would be to find an existing map and just study that and repurpose
I
it
mean, yeah, that's the
instead.
best way to do it. Yeah, because it's less work, and yeah,
Yeah.
you have like a vision of how an existing world works. You just basically just flavor it the way you want it.
Yeah. So that's part of the setting. You mentioned
Yeah.
biomes. What kind of biomes have you like utilized for your maps or for your worlds?
I really like desolate places. So yeah, I had like probably like desolate places and then desert, few like forest here and there,
Ooh.
just to yeah.
Deserts. So how would you utilize the desert? Exactly. Like what would be there? What kind of races and how would they adapt and survive? How does that work? Because that's like basically one of the
It is,
harshest
yeah.
environments.
Well,
So it's
you know,
limited.
well, since this is a fictional world and you want something to put in your desert, it's not just unpopulated area. I put an oasis on the desert so that there's like a town or a small city on the center, or depending on where do you want it. Or I put like just to make sure that travelers survive, like I put outpost depending on the edge of the desert, going doing through it, and the other from side to side. So yeah, so that's how I ensure like trade
Oh,
post, like make sure that the travelers and traders like survive the travel with the desert. Yeah.
that's pretty neat. Like what would you trade if you were in a desert? What would you have to offer to trade to travelers? Obviously, what you would probably prize is water and stuff that
Uh,
are not
I don't think
available
you
in the
would
desert.
like go ahead and sell water. That's pretty hard to like um what transport.
But like crops, maybe.
Perhaps grains, clothes, dried meat, processed meat, uh, something that it won't spoil within the heat. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. So desert, that's one
No,
type of setting. Have you ever built something that's in water or
not yet.
underwater?
Yeah, that's my next plan to build. I well, basically, I tried to build once like an Atlantis, but I'm not really happy with it. Like because it's just Atlantis, just reflavored. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, there's so much you can do with
yeah.
underwater
So yeah,
bases.
probably what I'm trying to do next is to do like a underground dwellers. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so I'm trying to work on like a kingdom like on land, above ground, and then kingdom underground. Yeah,
Oh,
so yeah,
that's
so
so where would the entrance be for something like that? Like is because usually it's mountains and then there's caverns that lead
I'm not trying to
underground.
be very like very secretive about the underground kingdom. So there's
The
supposed to be
underground.
like
Yeah.
causeway or like an entrance guarded by like a city or a town like who is like allied to them or a vassal to them. That's someone who is benefiting, like who benefits from having a kingdom within like underground. You know?
Hmm. That sounds good. So we are just discussing these things, and the goal is just basically to give listeners an idea of how we create worlds or
Mhm.
plan to, and maybe they can get ideas or get some perspective, and maybe they would even have ideas of their own that they won't completely
Yeah,
agree
but
with.
the thing is that
We do stuff,
yeah,
but it's just yeah, it's just
for
nice talking
most
about it.
it's different process. Some like start with like their
Mm-hmm.
pantheon of gods, then go to the small detail. Yeah, so
Oh, speaking of gods, do you have gods in your world, and what pantheons?
nah, I use
What
the
do you
same
use? Like
pantheon
in
because I'm just too lazy to give like characteristic to the gods, and I'm not sure if I have the capacity to create like um like
like
yeah
whole
like the
pantheons?
whole
Yeah, like the Mises.
and like the what do you mean like the cause and effect of their action through the ages.
Mm, yeah,
I can't think of it if I don't know who they are. So at least from the current existing gods, I know like what their behaviors, how will they act through the ages, things like that.
that is true. I would do the same if I ever, but that would mean reading a lot of the lore and seeing what would possibly work with the
And
settings.
you can also go like
What's
monotheistic god if you want.
yeah, yeah, that is true. Like, how would you employ, or how, or what is the dynamic between the peoples and the gods in your world? Like, are they super close or
I
indifferent
mean
or
they well given
mutual?
that it's a D&D setting, they have like hands on like basically the denizens of the world understand that there are higher beings, that there are gods because the existence of the cleric. Um something like um prevent like apocalypse or the total annihilation of a race. So only gods can prevent that.
Yeah, and are they the gods? Are they super chummy with the clerics, or are they how do you manage that relationship? Do they answer the call every time, or some of the time, or do you
I'd
base
say it
decisions
depends
on
on the
certain
god, on how
circumstances?
fickle their mind is. Because not all
Mm-hmm.
gods are chummy with their cleric. Some are just like, okay, here's a
Yeah,
power, go ahead and use it. and that's basically the first and the last time they actually communicate. But also, yeah, I'm also open to the other
Just
gods who are actually very close to the clerics that talks to them. Well, depending on who is that god, and what is their nature.
uh that makes sense. I haven't really read all a lot, so I don't really know, but I just probably have like some snippets of this
Okay.
god or that god and what they do, but it's always different for different
Yeah.
worlds, how they're
I don't know.
implemented.
I'm
So,
thinking about a god or a world which has no god, but the
oh,
cleric magic still works. So it's like the Mister of the
that's
world.
interesting.
So yeah.
So speaking of like magic, how is magic employed in your world? Is it bountiful or do you limit it? How do you manage magic and
For
magical
magic,
items?
perhaps I'd like to think like the magic developed via use of higher authorities. Like they existed, meaning they're used for combat and other like arcane practitioner who has like to enable to make their lives better, but not to the point that it's accessible to the commoners. Like, I mean, unless you're a sorcerer who have access to magic, or like a commoner who is a wizard, things like that. But it's not like everyone can do magic and like make your lives better.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think limiting the amount of magic helps the characters develop
Yeah.
more. And what about magical items?
Ooh, I'm not really fond of magical items. Probably there are like few legendary items scattered somewhere there, but not like overpowered items that like could like decimate thousands of soldiers in one swing, something like that. No, probably they are legendary because they've been used or they've
Wow.
been a part of something during the past stages.
So would it be just is it all just legendary items? So would that take them a higher level to get? And what
No,
level would that
it's
be
totally
if it's
random. It
in
could be
D&D?
labeled 5, and if you were on the right place in the right time, you could totally get it. Because it's not an
Wow.
overpowered item, as I said. It's not something that you could just wave and destroy cities. It's not. It's something like really significant that it gives value. The value itself is what makes it legendary. It's not the magic within it.
Hmm.
So yeah.
What is an example? Do you have an example of such a weapon that you've created? And this is homebrew, right? Or are you
Yeah, this
using
is over. So basically,
actual items
there's
from the
this
book?
knife. It's been used by a hero
Mm-hmm.
before, but that it's considered as legendary weapon because it's been used by a hero. But that hero did not actually use it as part of it, like a warfare or something. It's just a daily knife for him. But through the ages, it developed this how do you say it something so short of an influence that people believe that it's something great because an hero held it once.
Uh it's not, it's the
Yeah,
branding.
probably it's yeah.
Part of
So
it is the branding.
it's not something very dangerous, but it's something very important.
Okay. That makes sense. Makes sense. So is it something sentient or
No,
no?
but
Or no?
it's a really good knife. Like It's something you don't
That would be.
need to like what do you call it, to sharpen for a very long time. Yeah.
Mm. You know, there are a lot of stuff that are in D&D that you don't think about, like yeah,
Yeah,
sharpening the
and it's
blade.
unbreakable.
You
Yeah.
know, you know
Yeah.
stuff like little stuff like that that makes your weapon special and they're magical. Um, magical items. What else? Is there politics involved in your
There
world?
is, but I'm not sure about how much I could actually like blend to the story. If that happens, but there's politics because at some part of the story there will be like um the combat will be like catching the flag. So basically, you will attack this castle. If you win it, you can take it. If the enemy attack that castle, if you lose, they will take it. So it will like a domination game
Mm.
that your characters or the characters in this world will try to dominate other kingdoms.
Uh, oh, it's like a feudal setting
Yeah,
then.
it's feudal. It's a medieval.
Yeah, this is pretty cool. Politics. What is there a economic wise? Is it leaning to one socioeconomic status, or is it like almost equal for everyone? Or are there more rich people versus poor people? How does that
Yeah,
come into
well,
play
as
in
I
your world?
want to make like rich, beautiful world, there are rich people, they are lucky people who get rich. There are poor people, even though they like work their whole lives, still poor. And yeah, I'd like to create like a caste system so that
Mm-hmm.
yeah, just for the flavor of the world, but yeah. I'm not sure about how everyone feel about slavery, but I'm open to it. Let's just say it about that.
Yeah, it's in a fictional world, and those things can happen. Like really bad things really
Mm-hmm.
happen. I mean,
I don't want my
in a
word to be
fictional setting,
like a happy-go-lucky word. Yeah, like
sanitized.
everything is okay. No discrimination happening here. No, I want my world like a
Yeah,
world that is breathing. Like there's a you can feel the history in it. Yeah.
yeah. Let's see. Magic, races. So you did mention discrimination. Is there what races are usually what races do you usually allow in your world? Is it all of them, and do you implement
Just the
the
major
different
ones, not
rifts
really
between?
the
Mm-hmm.
like the newer ones are like in space-faring creatures. Nah, yeah.
and and how are they? How do they interact with one another? Is there discrimination between one and the other, or are they all just they don't really care?
So this has not happened yet because they're supposed to be like each race are supposed to have like kingdom that they belong to. But as the story progressed, there will be like a kingdom who will fall and rise. So depending which kingdom fall and which kingdom rise, the discrimination will be fall to those whoever loses.
Mm.
So it's an ongoing,
So what?
probably,
It's an ongoing.
yeah.
Is it in your
It's in a
campaign
campaign,
or
yeah.
to be? Yeah. There's spoilers.
Well, no one's gonna play it, so.
Well, you don't know that. They could. What else? Let's see. So now that you have your world and working elements, how do you deploy your players when you start a campaign? Okay, we're fully going into D&D now. How do you gather them basically? If you have your players, like how do you usually introduce them to the
So yeah,
world
I've
and then
tried like the tavern setting story like everyone
yeah.
else. I tried that. I also tried um like a celebration. They all meet in a celebration. And I also tried like
Mm.
they've already established they already like registered adventurer, and then they were called into a town, and then this town is just spoilers full of carnivores, like. And
Oh.
then like before they will send out, because the request is supposed to be like a kill goblins, but okay, this is very spoiler heavy territory. Okay, so this is how it goes. So yeah, a town is requesting for adventure, like to kill goblins, and then this is before the story happens. Um, like a mid-size, like a mid-level adventurers was sent, and they never came back. And then
Oh.
like yeah, since the territory is not very well off and very not like monster heavy, just no like work for the adventurers there. So most adventurers in the area are low levels. And then since there's no high level adventurers in the area, the adventurers guild decided to send to beat the goblins with numbers rather than strength. So they sent like a multiple level ones on the town to help them with the goblins. Okay. So after that,
Mm-hmm.
before the town sent off the adventurers to the goblin to kill them, they have a feast for them, like a good luck feast, because they're gonna be helping the village. After everyone has taken the food and drink the beer, all adventurers collapse and lose their consciousness. And then they wake up in the underground
Oh.
dungeon, surrounded by the villagers, being chopped one by one, depending. So,
Continue. Go on.
okay,
Carry
so
on.
yeah, being chopped one by one, depending on the role. Because I don't plan to kill all the players, but there are other adventurers that's with them, which is not part of a party. So yeah. So every time, so for the villagers to choose which one to kill is that they ask, they says to or they say to the adventurer, I have a plan and I know how to get out. If you're willing to go with a plan, they will kill you. And then after that,
Oh.
yeah. So there'll be lots of roles to identify as certain cues and how to avoid it. But I'm not gonna railroad my players to kill them. First, I'm gonna give them a chance to avoid certain death. But they're gonna wake up like
Mm-hmm.
on a dungeon surrounded by carnivore race eating adventurers. So basically, that's the whole trade. They ask for help. Once the adventure guild send help, they like feast on those adventurers.
So is this like so these are all adventurers from a
Yes.
guild,
Mhm.
right? So what is the guild about? Is it just a main, you know, what are the benefits of being
Mm.
in that guild
Yeah,
and what is the
basically, this
history
is a
of
new
that guild?
town. It's like a batch of displaced populace that was sent by the king somewhere and the like edge of the kingdom to start like a new frontier. But not known to everyone that this is just like a cult. Oh yeah, fish eating cult. So yeah, there's that.
The guild is
The
part of
guild
the
is not.
cult?
The guild has no idea. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. I was about to say that is some
No,
ingenious plan.
I don't want my. Well, the guild will be just heavily suspected at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, but it, it's kind is this like the first time that the cult has
Yeah, basically
done
this
it
is the
though?
start of the
Like would the
story.
guild
Oh
not
no,
get suspected?
basically the first victim
Okay.
was the mid-tier party, and
Uh-huh.
then there will be a few more adventures sent until the story starts.
Yeah. Eventually somebody will catch on to like, we've been sending
Yeah,
adventurers to that part and some of them don't come
that's the
back.
reason why.
But there's no witnesses, nobody
Yeah.
would know. So that's interesting. So um what are the encounters for that
For the first part, most
start?
encounters are versus the villagers if they want to fight, or they
Okay.
also have an option to just sneak out if they want to.
And what levels do they
I
start?
usually start with level 2 or level 3. I don't want to start at level 1 because these are like already experienced adventurers. Yeah.
Mm. What do you usually prefer for yourself to start on adventures? What level would
I
you
usually
start
want
with?
to start like around level 3 to level 6 because there's no
Mm.
fun in playing level 1. It's a
It's a
grind, yeah.
grind. It's a
So yeah, I
grind.
want to start the
Yeah.
story with a good sense of combat and a good like
Mm-hmm.
yeah, because some players will just write some crazy backstory that doesn't match up with your character and then just like level 1. So at least make them level 2. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Level 3 is I think it's nice to have at least the option to have the class features by then. At
Yeah, well,
level 3 at
depending on
least.
how much do you want your world can handle. Because but level
Mm-hmm.
3 is already like really strong for a commoner. Unless you want
Yeah.
like really like to find
Yeah.
gods like at some point. Yeah.
Yeah, I said like I think you mentioned how modules usually end at level
Yeah.
a certain they cap
They
at
do.
certain levels,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's really
And homebrews
they
are
don't also reach like epic level.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Unlike homebrew. What's the I think one of the campaigns I started in one of them we were in a cage. I think we woke up and we were in cages, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And we were trying to escape, but that didn't really um kick off because we only had one session and then it
Oh.
just kind of the schedules fell apart. But that was an interesting start to be in separate cages.
Yeah. I hear that one
So
too. Like
those are
there are people who
interesting.
use that like a story hook.
Mm-hmm. As opposed to you all meet
Yeah, well,
at a
everyone uses
tavern.
that, so that's like generic start of the story. Yeah,
The standard. Yeah. You meet in a tavern and then you roll any. Yeah. Well, let's see. I want to make something different, but I haven't figured it out yet. So I'm hoping to start one soon. I am working on a lore
mm-hmm.
for something for
Okay,
homebrew, but I also adapted it to um the current lore in
okay,
Remnant. Yeah. So I utilized the warp lands, and basically what happened was when the Katran Empire fell and Mirage's daughter wanted to tap into the power of the Forbidden Veil, where Tharizdun's
okay,
prison was. she failed because the Fate Breakers, this group that believes in, well, they're a sect or something. They want to prevent like cataclysms and stuff. So they went ahead to thwart her plans. They succeeded. She died, but she did manage to unleash a portion of the power that created the warp.
Okay.
So what I did was I made it to where from that point there were survivors that were involved in both sides of the conflict that were trapped there when the warp happened, because it was an abrupt change and it was an expansive change. So some of them were trapped, some of them died, and then those that survived eventually adapted to the new terrain and formed the groups that I told you about, like the three groups: the scavengers, the growers, and then the prowlers. So the scavengers initially is a big group, and they had like half orcs, humans, half elves, like the people who were a part of that fight, but generations down. And a segment of that broke off and became the Prowlers group, and they call themselves the Veil's Chosen because they hold on. These were originally loyalists to Narash, and they still hold on to the belief that whatever lay in the Forbidden Veil, whether it's the untapped power or the current warp, that power belongs to them, and they want to use it for their own ends.
I see. Okay.
And the main scavenger group does not really subscribe to that. They just want to survive because they know that there are dangers to such powers. So the two splintered off, and while one flourished, the other kind of delegated themselves to the southern region where there's desert, and they figured out how to survive there too. And then there's the growers, which started out with a small group headed by an archdruid whose grove was heavily destroyed by the warp, and he used whatever powers he had left and time to rebuild something, but he couldn't. So he kind of created these mini greenhouses just to help like cultivate something. Because the warp, I don't know if Laura would approve it, but I made it so that the warp taints everything, even the soil. So nothing really. Okay. It can grow. It has it. Yeah, there's fertile land, but it's not. What it produces is not something you can eat and then you'll be fine. It has a cumulative detriment somehow because it's warp produced. So the druid basically creates and destroys water and purifies, food and drink, and then eventually they also die. The reasons they don't know for sure, but they blame the warp. But he was able to take on 3 apprentices, which help carry on his legacy. So they do that. They have their own tiny group, and they work with the scavengers to provide them food, and the scavengers provide them protection. And the prowlers, they're called the prowlers because they don't have the knowledge or resources and the organization that the other 2 groups have. So they basically just stalk and take advantage of opportunities when they arise to steal or take what they can. Yeah. But scavengers, they have 3 subclasses. They have the Argonauts, which I designated as hunter-gatherers. And they're basically the ones who go out and gather materials, hunt beasts, or look for bounty and loot. And these, in turn, are used as items to be sold in the markets, either as spell components or meat or magical items in MIP. That's what I suggested. And then they have the chroniclers, which are the navigators and cartographers. And their job is basically to chart the lands as far as they can. And the scavengers have the most information when it comes to history and geography, because they've collected that since when they were trapped. So the survivors from there, they just collected all the information, shared it, documented it, and passed it down. So they're a pretty knowledgeable group.
Mm-hmm.
And if you ever need a guide or need to look for something that you believe is in the Warplands, the best chances to do that is to get a scavenger as a guide, basically. Of course, they don't have the whole land mapped, and there's uncharted territories that they just designate as uncharted. But every time they go out, they send a hunter and then a navigator or a cartographer to record and add on to the pile of stuff that they know. And then they also have the healers, which just basically not a lot of them. There's not a lot of resources, but they have them for, helping treat people. So basically those are the 3 loose communities that I've come up for in the Warplands, and that's where I'm building. That's what I'll be using to build encounters on.
Okay, so what's your story go? Why would the adventurers go here?
Well, one of the story hooks for the spoiler alert.
Oh no!
For low levels. Spoiler alert. One of the adventures I planned for low levels is basically just the material gathering.
I see. Okay.
So if I see somebody's asking for lore on certain magic items, that's how I'd like to build the encounter on. Have somebody tap. I don't like doing the guild hall because a lot of people now don't really stay there.
It's a dead
so maybe
place.
Just yeah,
no one goes there.
I could or just an ad for we sell all these stuff, because the motto for the group is the warp provides, and the warp takes. So take it or something like that. So every once in a while, the scavengers would send off somebody, a representative with a pack of goods to sell in the city, and that's who I RP when I run MIPs. And that's one of the NPC hooks that I'd be using if I'm gonna run an encounter for low to mids to gather lore or MP for the items.
Sounds good.
And just base it off on that. And then one of the other hooks that I have, more spoiler alert. So the scavengers have Old Timer, which is I'm thinking low or mid-level wizard. And he wants that artifact retrieved, the Shield Guardian. I think I remember I told you about that. And it's a 2-parter, because first he would want this Shield Guardian, this artifact retrieved, which is probably a low or mid-level adventure. And then once he has that, he'd start commissioning for materials to rebuild the Shield Guardian into a Warforge, which I will eventually turn into another NPC.
I see. Okay.
So there's that. There's the material gathering for the Warforged. And then the other is a body retrieval. So there's 3 scavengers that were sent out and didn't come back. They were supposed to gather materials, but they didn't come back. So a party will be sent out to find them. And the party is supposed to encounter basilisks. And the retrieval is for 3 petrified members.
Okay. Yeah.
Not the party, but the scavengers. And the plan was only one of those, only one of the the petrified bodies is actually viable for salvage. And this one, on this mission too, one of the objectives is to gather an intact basilisk gullet, or as many as they can, because the the growers and the scavenger healers will be using that to extract oil to cure the petrification. And the unpetrified member is going to be another unlocked NPC, which will have a missing limb, like I think the arm, because of that was destroyed during when she was in stone form.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So so they'll be able to use the oil, but there's a missing limb, and she's the only survivor, so she lost her parents, which are the other two scavengers included in that mission. And this NPC called Yawa will be added to the pile of NPCs. And there are other plot hooks. Because the prowlers will also have their involvement. And one of the things I planned for the basilisk gut retrieval will be that while the party is busy with fighting, somebody would notice that there's this one person trying to steal a basilisk egg, and that would be a prowler.
Sounds great. Yeah.
Yeah.
These are still under
just those
for approval, right?
Development.
Yeah.
Yeah, these are still for approval, but if in either case, I'd want to use it for a home game, because I think it would be a great story as well.
Sounds good. Yeah, you could definitely run that as a home game, but I'm not sure if lore will allow you. But so far it's a solid story. It's just that lore theme is a bit strict.
Yeah, because they'd have to consider future, because we're setting
and location and stuff.
So. Yeah, there's a lot of potential there because I want to use the creatures as well, and I also created 2 potential races, because I don't know if you've looked at races available. They have custom lineage.
Nope.
Races. Yeah, we have those. You can use, I think you can choose to have dark vision, and then +2 to an ability and a +1 to a different ability, and then that's all you get. But you don't get the race related skills, like the skill versatility and whatnot. But you can create like something custom for that. Yeah, so I introduced Warp Born and Warp Touched. So Warp Born are basically those that were created out of the warp. Sometimes, when circumstances are right, for some reason, the warp creates humanoid creatures that are not like monsters and creatures. And these humanoid creatures, they all have, the Warp Borns are basically what they're called. They all have one theme in common. They thrive well in the warp, but not outside of it without arcane help in some form or other. So I'm working on that and seeing how they would survive outside of that. But yeah, so they're very valuable, but they're also very independent and strong-willed. And currently the scavengers have 5, the growers have, I think, 2 or 3. And then the prowlers are believed to have about 9 or 10. But the rumor is that they must be providing either promises of a great bounty or something of higher value for them to retain the Warpborn, because they prefer their independence. So they must have some kind of something that ties them to the group. Yeah. And then the second one is Warp Touch. It's basically everybody else that was there when the warp was created. So I haven't figured out what the afflictions are, but I'm thinking they just have this it's like a background feature, probably. It just allows them to, like how Outlander works. It allows them to survive in the warp lands and have certain proficiencies, like I was thinking of for the Scavengers Magic Initiate, because what I plan to do is the navigators and the cartographers, they are all able to cast Encode Thoughts, so that in case they're out trying to chart some portion, the
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
territory. They cast what they know and what they've recorded into a thought and leave that strand
I see.
there,
Okay.
so that the other members of the group can come retrieve it in case something happens to them, or they can retrieve it at
Sounds
another
good. Yeah.
time.
It's a solid.
Yeah.
It's a solid start.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's that, and some of the missions would involve retrieving the thought strands, basically. So for like low levels, such. What else? And then foreigners, they don't like outsiders, because the warp touch and the warp born, they're collectively called the forgotten, because nobody knows they exist, and nobody came back to see if they're alive. Nobody came to help them
Mm-hmm.
out through the decades. So they consider themselves the forgotten, and they don't really care so much about outsiders. They guard their secrets well, because they know that the knowledge that they have, even though it's not a lot, it's also can be linked to power, and they want to keep it within themselves. So outsiders are regarded indifferently unless you've earned their trust. Then they can be warned, but they won't open up to outsiders.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I think that's all I have for that
Mm-hmm.
one. Yeah, but it's a good
Okay.
start.
So how about your homebrew world?
My homebrew world is in shambles. I have I have kind of forgotten how I would implement the fantasy, because there's so many loopholes now. Every time I look at it, it's like all I see are holes, and I'm trying to fill the gaps
Well,
of those
you're not
holes,
gonna
but I
start as a
just create
perfect
bigger
world.
holes.
It's gonna be there's gonna be loopholes for that.
Yeah, yeah. So for for the homebrew world that I'm creating, I'm just basically creating an isekai
Oh, okay.
an isekai inspired world, where there's the modern world, and then this other world that requires, I don't even remember much about it now. But basically, um I'm not going to spoil it. I think you I'm still
Okay.
going to use Jet Li
Oh,
for it. Yes, yeah.
yeah. I deleted Jitli's
Because
character
there's
because I
something
no
that
longer have a slot for my character.
you'll have to bring him
Yeah.
back. So what was the thing? Basically, it's in a different world from ours, and there's a gate that can be opened by a token. And you go there, and you're given quests by a guide. And upon reaching several quests later, you will be allowed to have one wish, and that is the prerequisite
Wait,
for
is this wish aspire
being a
for
character.
us like a wish from a D&D? Like,
It's kind of that, but I had to change it for this
okay.
world,
So how powerful is
because
this?
it's
It's like Dragon Ball level wish.
yes, probably. I will have to see. See, that's one of the
Well, yeah,
loopholes,
it
because
will
I
break your world.
yes, and that is the whole point, was that if it's too powerful a wish, it could destroy the world. But you also have the option, because this world is in shambles, and its life force is basically these wishes. So whatever wish is granted is being the magic also feeds back into the life of the world,
Okay, okay.
which is why the strongest candidates for that they need to be brought into this world are people who have deep desires that cannot be provided for in the real world. Like, yeah, we could give you that in our world. We could give you the power to obtain that in our world, but you need to do something
Wait,
for
like
us.
what kind of
And
desires
it's
are like this morality, like ambiguity, like as long as you have
there's
desires?
no yeah, yeah. So as long as you have desires. And that comes into play because in this world there's also factions. There's those who want just, more, who believes that better, um, morally inclined desires would benefit the world. And there are those that, we don't care. We want to gain this power, and we're creating this power, and it's powered by desires, and it doesn't matter if it's good or bad. So there's one group that's creating a weapon, or trying to create something using magic derived from desires. And then there's the other that wants to maintain the balance.
Okay.
So there's that. There's two opposing factions, and if there's more loopholes, I'll just create a third or something to balance it out, because I didn't think it through. But the main point is, at the end, you're given a choice to make a wish either for yourself or for the world. And through the years, there were people who, depending on which faction chose them, was able to actually find that what they desired, they already have the power to obtain, using just what they have as a person, as a character. It's a character development thing. So by the end of that story, they don't really have anything to wish for, so they offer their wish for the world, which provides additional life force to it. And then there are those who are selfish and use it for their own gain, and the power is lost, but we made that deal, so here's your wish. You could go back. We get this power, but it's like a double-edged sword. It kind of helps provide life, but it also
Okay,
takes
so how
away.
many competing
something like
factions
that.
are in this world?
So currently there's two, because there's always evil
Good.
and good. So we'll see
Very
how that pans
monotone,
out, because
okay.
I have a feeling because that's the easiest, right? Like, because if you make it gray, it's like creating loopholes upon loopholes. So I'll figure out how to do that. And then there's also the failsafe, where there's always that one player that might wish for the end of the world, or somebody from that world who would want the end of the world, and it would basically destroy that world and send everybody back to their origin, the world they are in,
Okay.
and then they will still have the token, so they will not recall everything, but just bits and pieces.
But they still get the wish,
And
even
when
though
that
they
happens,
don't recall anything. Okay.
no.
That's gonna be really bad, by the way.
The world, if the world is destroyed, the capacity to wish is also gone. But there's guardians who would also find themselves in our world, and they'd have limited powers, but they will have the ability to try and bring back that world somehow, using missions and encounters for
Okay.
this world. They're gonna have to try to find a source of magic, and magic is always everywhere. I'll just have to figure out how it's created. At first, I was thinking, like, when people dream of certain things or have nightmares of certain things, that create something, but I'm like, oh, that's like a whole new bag of worms, and I don't really want to touch that. So I'll figure something out for the real world to create magic, so that we could find some means to use those for encounters,
Okay.
and eventually have enough new wishes to recreate that world, or bring it back. It's probably not going to bring everybody back,
Yeah.
but somehow, like, reverse the process.
Then you can just
kind of do a do-over.
you can do like a that twist, that there are stronger points that could like make a single wish, but much more powerful. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know. That's
Yeah.
basically
I would
Dragon Balls.
definitely just. Yes, 7
And then there's like other
I
Dragon
was thinking
Balls.
that, like,
And then they're like God Dragon Balls.
Oh my god, I think I've only seen like the original one, and then when it starts like getting so convoluted, I'm like,
There are
okay.
alien Dragon Balls. I don't know.
But yeah. Yeah, so that's what I have so
Okay.
far. What other worlds have you created that you wanna share, or what is your dream to make? if you have experienced a world where you actually really liked and have played in that you want to share.
I don't know. Let me think. I don't know. I have not played with Matthew Mercer, but his word is really like, okay, it's not that bad. Like, for a person who's gonna live in that world, I don't know. It seems that, yeah, things could get pretty bad, but in the end of the day, there's like a light in the tunnel. Yeah.
Mm.
So that's how that Matt Mercer's world, like Exandria. Yeah, so that's how it works. But yeah, probably if there's gonna be a campaign I'm gonna run, it's probably gonna base it like a video game, like a JRPG or something.
Yeah, those are always like the a great source for
Yeah, like,
inspiration.
or like a manga. Like, I'm not sure.
Or
Oh,
like a
like a
book.
book. Yeah, that also works.
Weren't you planning on making one out of The Hobbit?
Ah, yes. It's already done. I just need players. Yeah,
Okay.
and I need like I
When are you?
need like players who is available for that schedule. Like everyone. Like,
Oh, what is the schedule?
I don't know yet because it will depends on the player. Because it's gonna be like easily like 8 hours.
Oh my god, it's gonna be.
It's a
Oh,
one
it's a
shot,
one
yeah.
shot, right? That's right. Yeah. 8 hours. Imagine that. Is that like an estimate
That's
or?
a guesstimate.
Yeah, because I figured it would be longer. It'd be
Yeah.
longer depending.
Depending on how many shenanigans they
you
want to
would
go
need-
through that.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Well, technically, it's not the habit. It's just based on the habit.
Oh, inspired by
Yeah.
Hobbit. I see. Yeah, you may want have like maybe a session 0
I don't know.
if
It's just a one shot. Yeah.
I don't know. Well, you
Yeah.
never
Well,
know
true.
what kind of players you will get.
True. Yeah, still need the players who are dedicated to do like an 8 hour long one shot. Yeah.
Yeah. You'd be surprised maybe if they haven't played D&D in a while. And it's like it's just that one day
Just one
scratch
day.
the itch.
Just one day.
And I'll be good for another 6 months. Mm.
Although I have not like finished the ending. There's like the whole story and everything, like encounters. But I don't know how to end it. Like I don't want them to like give them like a basic ending, like okay, you got the gold, it's over. I don't want that. So
Oh.
I want something like fulfilling perhaps. So I'm still thinking about it.
That's what else? Well, it's nice to have an open ending.
True.
You also have. Will there be dragon?
Who knows? Who knows?
Maybe there is. Maybe there is. Maybe the players are the dragon.
Maybe the characters are actually the villain of the story. Who knows?
Oh, that would be interesting. Especially if the alignment isn't all good to start with. How do you make a villain out of a good aligned character? That's the bigger question there. How would without them knowing?
I don't know.
How would you?
Because it's gonna be like takes a lot to keep them in the dark.
Yeah, and then you don't know if the player would enjoy that. Like, not all players
Yeah,
are game.
because
Other players will probably like, well, that makes sense. I didn't know.
heard
so-
this once before that
Yeah.
a party of morally good characters turn out to be the villain of the story because of the how
That would be
because of
interesting.
what or like what kind of mission they choose to take on, things like that.
Mm. Especially if they didn't really think
Yeah, because
to figure out, yeah, if they've been used
yeah,
or if there's something seems off and nobody really bothered
it's
to
true.
investigate.
Yeah. What if they
It's
are
kind
just
of
like
a
another
nice
race in the
thing, yeah.
world?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That would be interesting to see. I want to see that happen
There's
though,
a
and just so I could see the
there's a
development.
story of that somewhere on the internet that I saw once. Yeah.
Oh, like send me a
I
link.
will try to find it. It's I know it's pretty long, but yeah, I'll try to find it.
Yeah, those are interesting twists to encounters that make players rethink their decisions on the next go around. If it's just a little tiny thing,
I
eh,
mean, if the
maybe
party
they would
is
try
like
to.
money motivated, it's just easy to do that.
Yeah,
No.
definitely. And money is always a
Or
driver
they
for
are
low
very like
levels.
chasing for like glory. Yeah. It's also like easy to do
Mm-hmm.
that.
And they could have there's always goals probably if you could take advantage of the player goals. And yeah, you would reach that goal for sure, but this is what you have to do to get there.
Yeah.
And it kind of forces
I
the hand, but
yeah,
that's
I
up
don't
to
know.
them.
I had like a fellow player before that like it's just really good backstory and he will turn out like evil in the end. But because the player likes to be like altruistic, like he did not go through with the plan. So yeah. But if that happened, like
Um,
it's like pretty cool story. Although he might like turn from the
yeah,
party though now.
I think those are the interesting parts of the RPG is the character development. Because when you expect something out of a character at the beginning and then they end up totally different by the end because of reasonable
Yeah.
things, circumstances. That's always fun.
Yeah,
Always fun to
yeah,
see.
but sometimes it's really hard when the player bleeds into the character and starts affecting the decision making. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And that's sometimes that happens subconsciously, I guess. And the DMs would just remind, what would your character
Yeah.
do? Just what your character would do. I think it's easier for me with my other characters to do as they are, as they would, but for Emrys, because Emrys is the first one, I kind of like forget sometimes, and that bleeds through because when I created Emrys, I didn't think about you know that this character will eventually have decisions because I did not know that that was part of making character. I was
Yeah,
a
you were a
noob
new.
basically. It wasn't
But
fleshed
the
out
thing is, you
how they
still
were
brought
supposed to do.
that
It just
the new characters, which is still based on Empress.
mm, there are
Yeah,
those,
so
yes.
why why
There are
did you
several
not change that? And you are aware of it?
because
No,
I like having Emrys
that's
in the
like
others. You mean like the
yeah,
iterations of Emrys
yeah.
in the other worlds? Yeah, I do that on purpose, but I'm talking about the other characters that are
Okay,
not
okay.
Emrys. Yeah, but for the ones that are in the other worlds, yeah, I like those because I wanted to create Emrys existing in different parallels, different universes. I want to see how many variations.
Variants of Empress.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah, because it'd be fun. Let's see. Speaking of characters, my other characters are so poor. I need to get the money.
Yeah, well, all
Money
of my
and
characters
TP
are poor except for one. Yeah.
for half. Uh, okay. What else for world building? What are the don'ts? Don'ts.
Don't rush anything.
World building. Hmm. Sounds good. What?
Don't try
Don't,
yourself into a corner.
don't don't overdo
Yeah.
it.
Sometimes it's okay to
Like,
lift things vague.
yeah, yeah. Just know there's limitations. Start
Mhm.
small. It's okay
Yep.
to start small. Sometimes it's better to start small and expand than have everything and then realize there's a lot of
Yeah.
holes. Yeah.
And you
What
don't have
else?
to start big right away. Like, you could start just a down. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's all I have. Do you have anything else to add
I don't know.
to lore, world building, etc.?
I don't know. Because people's are different, but for me, like, don't make like unnecessary background for people. Like, that are too like obnoxious, or that because they are son of a god, they need to be powerful, things like that. Don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
At least apply as much as you could realism onto your world.
Yeah. It makes it easier
Yeah, unless
for
you're like
um
running
the
like
story.
an anime campaign, like everyone's a hero.
That's hard to make everybody a hero.
Yeah, well, basically, it's just gonna be like Dragon Balls. You will need to just up one level every time, like characters improve. I don't know.
Yeah, you need like stronger and
Yeah,
stronger
it's gonna be like a
villains.
villain of the week thing if that happens.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's more fun to have low level storylines,
Yeah,
I
hmm
think, for me personally, because it's the struggle
and
is real still.
there is
And the
beauty and
risks are greater and
simplicity.
the
Yeah,
rewards are too.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Keep it simple.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like it's hard to run encounters for epics because and unless you take so much time to plan something that doesn't really involve just combat,
Yeah.
because combat is like made
Wait,
null and void.
the last time I played
um
Epic, it was just like an RP game. We just went shopping. Yeah.
mhm. Yeah. Yeah, pretty much.
Because there's
That's all
nothing
I
else to
could just
do.
go to
Like,
the beach. Yeah. Have a vacation. Uh yeah. Okay, well, I think that covers pretty much all we wanted to talk about today, and maybe next time we'll cover something else. We don't know
yeah.
yet. As usual, we just wing it. See where it
Uh-huh.
goes. Thanks for
Please like
listening
and subscribe.
and tolerating us. Yeah. Yes, if you
If it's
want
on
to. If you don't
YouTube
want
or
to, it's fine.
whatever platform this gonna be.
Yeah. YouTube, Spotify, and I think there's Google. I forgot. But Spotify and YouTube are the two main ones that we usually have these up. So thank you for listening and join us again next time on Anoni.